So here's a list of 5 operas I want to hear right now. Now, I'd previously done a list on my top 10 recordings of all time. Why do this one? Well, let me put it this way. I have a friend who says that the Beatles' Revolver is the greatest album ever made. When I asked him, okay, but what do you want to hear right now? And he said, oh, that's easy, Sgt. Pepper. So you see, the two aren't necessarily the same. So here's a list of the 5 opera recordings that I want to hear right now. Cav and Pag. Of course, this is an easy choice. Everybody wants to hear these 2 operas. They are always disc-mates. In the days of LPs, they would fit on 3 LPs. In the CD era, they fit on 2 CDs. Now, they're both about just a little over an hour long, so if you just want to hear one of them and not the other, they're easy to fit into your day. They are perfect disc-mates. One is dramatic, Pagliacci. One is lyrical. And most people, I think, gravitate towards Pagliacci first because it plays out like a thriller. It's an interesting story. The composer's father actually tried this case. Very strange crime. But I think some listeners, myself included, do tend to gravitate towards Cav as they get older. I think I learned to appreciate the lyricism and the writing a little bit more. I don't know if I like it more, but if I have to listen to one of them, it's going to be probably Cav. Now, if you're looking for a good recording of this, you're in luck because, boy, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. To me, the recordings that have been done of both of these operas tend to sound the same to me. Now, I know, for example, this is one of my favorite Cavs because it has Bjorling in it. And I like this a lot because it's on one disc, so there's no pressure to listen to the other one if you don't want to. Some people have a problem with Zinka Milanov here. She's fine, really. You know, if you hear the Callas Di Stefano recording, you can hear that it's them. But, you know, by and large, even when that's true, they do tend to kind of sound the same to me. And as a listener, especially a beginning listener, I think that's good because you can just throw a dart and you'll hit one that's good. So my favorite, the one I take off the shelf, is the one from Franco Corelli. Now, these are actually 2 separate performances. They weren't recorded at the same time. Cast is a little different. Orchestra and conductor are a little bit different. I like that because the cast for one, because one is so different from the other, one's dramatic and one's lyrical, is not always the ideal cast for the other one. So this is the one that I listen to, and it's the one I want to hear right now. Okay, next on the list, Eugene Onegin, the Levine recording on DG. Now, in the libretto here, Levine says he's always had a big soft spot for this opera. That's my feeling as well. And I don't understand it. I mean, it's not like this opera is obscure. Most people have heard of it, but this should be in the standard repertoire. I mean, they should be putting this thing on as often as Carmen or La Boheme, and I don't really understand why. It's got a great plot, it has terrific music in it, and it's Tchaikovsky. You'd think it would be a surefire hit and people would come see it. But I think in my lifetime, I've seen a grand total of 1 production, and I think I saw it in Pittsburgh. So here, again, with recordings, we haven't been all that lucky here because I've got, I think, just about all of them, and most of them aren't very good. Levine actually makes a case. You can feel him being a committed advocate for this music. Kind of reminds me of Leonard Bernstein's 1960s cycle of Mahler on CBS. He was trying to introduce this music to the world and acting like a committed advocate and pointing things out to you. It's a little bit of that here, and it might get a little bit, you know, aggressive at times, but I like the approach. So the cast is very good. Freni is terrific in that letter scene. And again, this opera seems to say a lot about human relationships and what we want and what we can't have. Like Tchaikovsky himself, all of the characters in this opera seek peace, companionship, and love, and none of them get it in the end. Terrific piece, and I want to hear this right now. Okay, next on the list, Turandot. Okay, this is low-hanging fruit. Everybody always wants to hear Turandot. but I'm pretty specific as to the one that I want to listen to, and it's this one. Now, before I get to this one, I think if you were to poll most critics and to say which one would the average person, the beginner, want to hear first, which one should they hear first, they're probably going to point you to the Pavarotti Sutherland Mehta recording on Decca, and I would agree. This is an easy way to learn the opera, and it's a terrific performance as well. If you did nothing else but hear this one, I think that you would probably be satisfied. If I could criticize this performance maybe just a little bit, they feel a little bit like a team trying not to lose. But on the other hand, this is not a team trying not to lose. This is a team swinging for the fences. That is the only acceptable conclusion, is to win. When you hear Nilsson do in Questa Regia, it is out of this world. Now, there are two Nilsson recordings of this one, and I go back and forth as to which one I like better. I usually come down on the side of this one. The other one is an RCA recording with Bjorling and Leinsdorf. Now, as much as I love Jussi Bjorling, I think that Franco Corelli's personality is a little bit better suited towards this opera, and surprisingly, I prefer the conductor here, even though Leinsdorf is the quote-unquote better conductor. Leinsdorf made a lot of those Puccini recordings for RCA. It seemed as though he was conducting with just a little bit of an accent, if you will. And that may not be obvious until you listen to this. Molinari-Pradelli was a conductor who knew when to get out of the way. And so this is my go-to opera when I want to hear Turandot. Now, another word here about this opera, the conclusion. This is a controversy here. As you may know, Puccini died before he could finish writing it. It was completed for him by Franco Alfano. This is a source of much debate among music lovers, and I have friends who are purists who will say that they will not listen to what happens after Liu's death in the last act. I know somebody who says he walks out after that because what happens from there to the end is of no consequence whatsoever. What do I think about this? You know, I've never had a problem with that Alfano ending. I think it's fine, it's serviceable for what it is, and you get to hear the melody from Nessun Dorma one last time. There are worse things in life. In Puccini's score, what he had written at the end, he said, "Find here the most beautiful melody." That's so intriguing. For a man like Puccini to write that, you need to pay attention. Now, the ending, it doesn't completely come together for me. The elements aren't completely there. I mean, everybody's shouting and celebrating at the end. You know, Liu's dead, and he's been pining after this woman who doesn't seem very nice, and why is everybody celebrating? Again, it's not perfect, but for purposes of performance and completion, I think it's fine. Okay, here's one that's going to be controversial. I love the Barber of Seville. Everybody loves the Barber of Seville. I want to hear this all the time. But I don't pick the recording that everybody else likes. A very common and safe recommendation for those of you who don't want to listen to me are any of the Gui recordings. This is probably my favorite. It's been reissued many times. But no, I'm picking this one, the Abbado DG recording from 1973. Now, Rossini enthusiasts everywhere are kind of scratching their heads right now, but bear with me. Critics do not like this recording. So I'm going to try to get into why I partially think that's happening. When this recording first came out, Abbado made a big deal about how he had unearthed some new information, and his was a more historically accurate performance. And I think what's happening a lot in classical music right now is there has been a backlash against this whole historically informed performance practices. And I get that a little bit. Sometimes those people can get maybe a little bit self-righteous for their own good. But I'll tell you, listening to this and my other Barber of Sevilles, I don't really notice that much difference. I mean, yeah, if I had a score in front of me and followed along, I could, oh yeah, that's different, that's different, that's different. That's part of it. The other thing that's commonly said about that recording is, it doesn't sound like anybody's having any fun. To which I respond, are you guys listening to the same recording I am? I mean, this is terrific fun. Listen to what Luigi Alva does with his part. I mean, Alva made a career out of this part. He is silly, and right out of the overture, you could tell nobody is taking any of this very seriously. Barber of Seville, get one of the standard recommendations like this one. But I'm telling you, if you want silly, goofy fun, go to the Abbado. Okay, and at number one, you're never going to guess what's at number one. The Tender Land by Aaron Copland. Okay, now, bear with me on this. This is not a list of the greatest recordings. Again, this is just what I want to hear right now. This is a terrific opera. Now, we are blessed to have 3 great recordings of this one. They are, number 1, University of Kentucky. We have Marie Sidlin's chamber arrangement. And we have the one that I like, Plymouth Music Series, Philip Brunelle, conductor. This is on Virgin Classics. And there's something about as soon as this opera opens, as soon as you hear the opening notes, sometimes you just know that something special is happening. Beth swings on the swing set right in the beginning, and listen right away to the way that she says she wants to swing and swing and swing, and tell me that you're not enchanted. So Copland got the idea for this opera by looking at James Agee's Let Us Now Praise Famous Men. There's a famous couple of photographs in there, a mother and a daughter, and you could tell the difference between them. The mother hardened by the hard life, and the daughter not yet aware that she's probably going to wind up like the mother. So I don't even have to tell you the plot of The Tender Land. All I have to do is tell you the title and the fact that it's written by Aaron Copland, and I think the plot kind of writes itself, doesn't it? Well, there's a farm family, and there's a young daughter who's a dreamer, and just by the way that she's talking, we can tell that she's probably not going to get her dreams. She's probably just going to spend the rest of her life on the farm and die there. One day, 2 drifters come into town, and everything changes. Now, if you've never heard the chorale that closes the first act, it's called The Promise of Living, you are in for a real treat. I think that is the best melody Copland ever wrote. Now, I saw this opera performed in Pittsburgh by Sidlin himself. He is the person who created the chamber orchestra reduction of the score. He did this partially to encourage opera companies to put this on more often. But whether you see it live or whether you hear it on any one of these recordings, you do owe it to yourself to listen to it. This is a fantastic opera, and it's something that I want to hear right now. All right, so that's a list of operas I want to hear right now. What are some of yours? I look forward to hearing your comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.